We're back with Mohamed Massaquoi for the Stories Worth Fighting For podcast. Mohamed, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
It's a pleasure to be here.
How are you feeling?
Great. Excited for this.
Good. So I've been really excited to talk to you. We're recent friends. I've heard bits and pieces of your story, and I'm already inspired, but I'd love to hear more from you. Okay. So if you could, let's just start. Where are you from?
Charlotte, North Carolina.
Okay.
Backtrack a little bit. My parents are Liberian, so
Cool.
They came over in the early 80s, so I still think it's, fascinating that I could have been born there and I'm born here, and some of the opportunities and cool things that have come out of it. So Charlotte, went to University of Georgia, had an opportunity to play football there, played in the NFL for a few years, and now live here in Atlanta.
Very cool. Okay. So growing up in Charlotte, parents were immigrants, so you're first generation.
First generation.
Here.
Yeah.
What was that like?
It's weird because you are almost in a bubble of, my parents' friends are African, and culturally there's a disconnect, and you're experiencing one thing at school and you're experiencing one thing at home, and the people and with your cousins and family and friends. So you kind of have this combination and intersection that you pull a little bit from both sides, and you develop your own little world per se.
I'm sure that's interesting. Did that lend a different perspective than maybe some people you were going to school with or playing sports with?
Just how you view things. It's you have the developed world of America, bustling economy and everything, and then you have Liberia that is going through a civil war at the time, and just how my parents escaped and other family members escaped and came over here, and their view on life and their appreciation for the small things, and just not even understanding American culture all the way, so not even being able to teach it to me. So just that weird, intersection of everyone's trying to figure this thing out as we go along.
Sure, yeah. And so you're on your own in terms of learning what American culture is and how to make your way through it.
I wouldn't say on my own, because you pick it up organically as a kid, as you're going through school or you're watching TV and you're learning things, and you're educating your parents as to why this particular shoe is better than the other shoe, or why this song is better than the other song.
Sure.
But things like that are just fascinating to me.
And you used the word escape. What were your parents escaping from?
Oh, Civil War. So if historically, if you think of Liberia, it's a country that the freed slaves went to, and it was very peaceful, leading up to probably the late 70s. And then there was a different coups trying to overthrow the government, and then that leads to Civil War that lasts probably from 1980 to 2003-ish. And you just have utter turmoil where people are dying and people are bombing things, and there's just complete chaos. So you're trying to escape out of there. I think I read something the other day where 500,000 to 600,000 people died in a country at the time that's probably only 3 million people. So you lose a fifth or sixth of your population. That's pretty big reason to escape and try to get a new life.
And I've never really thought of this before, but Liberia shares the same root as liberation. It's free, but then there's all this turmoil.
On the continent of Africa, Liberia and Ethiopia were the only two countries that were never colonized. And having that, freedom, and then that turned into civil war. It's this, weird dichotomy. It's what happened, what went wrong. But in being able to escape and come over here, basically put down new roots and help your family have a better future. It's tons of appreciation for that.
I'd say your parents did a great job.
They did a great job.
So growing up, what were you into? What did you like to do?
Well, sports, obviously. Both of my parents are athletes. Dad, big soccer player. If you asked him right now who is a better athlete between me and him, at 25 years older than me, he'd still say himself.
Yeah.
Mom did a little bit of everything: basketball, soccer, track.
Nice.
So sports was just something that we naturally gravitated to. But in saying that, they didn't really understand the journey of becoming a professional athlete, so they push you into other things, whether it be music or making sure that you pay attention for school, and just weird different African cultures was dancing or into the arts or eating.
All good things.
All
So
good things.
what other I know about football,
Yeah.
obviously, and we'll get to that. But what other sports did you play growing up? Did you follow your dad's footsteps? Try some soccer?
Small. I'm functional in it,
Okay.
but by no means, Ronaldo or Messi.
Mm-hmm.
I could run around and pretend. Basketball. I'm from North Carolina, so obviously, basketball is huge there.
Yeah.
So those are really the primary
Were you
sports.
Duke or UNC fan?
Carolina all day.
Carolina. All right.
Don't do anything with Duke.
Okay.
They should be like shipped out the country or something.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very cool. Okay. So you find football. How old were you? About
I started playing when I was 7 or 8.
young. Okay.
Somewhere in there. More so because my cousins played.
Mm-hmm.
I had older cousins that they played, and you obviously want to follow in their footsteps. So you run around and you're terrible, but you're on the team. So, you get the snacks after the game, a little participation award. And then you get a little bit better and you start finding your way. And that goes from, I think I played like fullback or tight end or something.
Okay.
Something
So you're
weird.
big.
No. I think that's just like the positions that you get out the way at the time. The
Gotcha.
tight end's not going to get the ball. The fullback just kind of gets out the way.
Yeah.
And as you get a little older, then you start playing quarterback, start playing running back.
Cool.
Yeah.
Was there a moment that you knew football was for you? Was there something early on, maybe an early football memory that sticks in your mind?
What's crazy is football was just something to do. And I had a friend our 9th grade year where, you're playing sports just as a kid, as a boy, or any kid for that matter, and you're waiting for the next season to come along. And football was my season, and I had a friend, Donald Mack, who from our 9th to 10th grade year, he went from like 5'10" to 6'5". And I was waiting on my growth spurt to happen. And it never happened. And I went from like 5'10" to 6'1". And he went on to continue to play basketball, and I was like, you know what, maybe I should just stick with football. And it worked out good. So
I'd say so. Yeah. Cool. Okay. So, grew up in Charlotte. Where do you go to high school?
Independence High School.
You're at Independence. They have a strong football program. Were y'all
Strong
competitive?
football. And the other reason why it was a little harder to switch from football, my high school won 109 games in a row, 7 straight championships.
Ooh, dynasty.
So
All right.
At a place like that, it makes a little bit more sense to see it through versus if we were terrible, maybe I would have,
Pick something else.
been more interested to pick another sport.
Yeah, but there's those expectations of excellence. Is that?
Yeah, you're winning the state championship every year. You're getting recruited. People are paying attention to you. You're on a national scale.
So do you think being a part of that type of program where excellence is expected, where you're winning a lot of games, where there's probably some other players that are going to the next level, do you think that's something that helped you get to the next level?
For sure. You have a true example as to what you're trying to do.
Mm-hmm.
If you're just out there, and this is before social media, this is before the internet is blowing up and everything, so everything is grassroots.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't know what the kid in Texas is doing or what the kid in New York or California is doing. So you can only go with what's happening around you.
Rivals isn't big yet.
Rivals is just starting to peak. And so you're figuring out, okay, what do I want to do? I know I want to get from here to here.
Mm-hmm.
What does that look like? There's no rule book as to how you get to college on a scholarship or how you get to the NFL or whatever professional sport. So you just do what you know. And we were able to do it functionally well.
Oh yeah? Okay, so take me to like junior, senior year. You're looking at colleges. There's probably more than a couple interested in you. How do you make that decision?
It's weird when I tell people this. It's very difficult because I went to Georgia, which I think is the best school in the world. Mm. And if you ask a person from Ohio State or Texas or Southern Cal or Penn State or Clemson, they're going to say their school is the best school in the world. Mm-hmm. And all these schools are great schools. I'm biased, obviously, to Georgia. But when you're constantly going in these different facilities and interacting with other great players and other great coaches, everything starts to look the same. Mm-hmm. So for me, in talking to these different individuals and my mom not even understanding the concept of getting a sports scholarship to go to college and a person wants to, have her son and go through this or whatever the case may be, it's confusing. And it's like, okay, Mom, today I'm going to LSU. Tomorrow I'm going to Texas. Next day I'm going to Florida State. Oh, you know what? I'm going to take a trip to Cal. I heard somebody took a trip to Hawaii just because I want to take a trip to Hawaii. And she's like, okay, just leave me alone with it. You figure it out on your own.
Wow.
And it worked out to where when it all came down to it, Georgia made the more sense for me, and it worked out the way I wanted it to.
And what was the criteria? Like, let's say, what were your top 2 or 3 schools, and why Georgia?
Weirdly enough, Tennessee was high up there for a long time. They had a coach that I think it's Brooks Foster, Coach Brooks, Dan Brooks Foster, something like that. He was the D-line coach. Always wore his hat backwards. Real cool. But I didn't really like Knoxville that much, nor did I like the orange. Just weird things that kids think about.
Orange, man,
but crazy enough, my high school quarterback, Texas was actually going to be the school that I thought I was going to commit to. Mac Brown used to coach at Carolina, which Carolina at the time wasn't doing what they were supposed to do. Basketball was strong, football had its struggles, and I was like, you know what, I'll just go to Texas. And my high school quarterback, Joe Cox, got a offer to go to Georgia, and we always thought it'd be cool if we could go to school together. And as I started to look more, they had 2 receivers graduating from Charlotte. Georgia's only like 2 hours, 45 minutes, so quick. Get to play in the SEC. They had a good history of guys getting drafted. So it's like, you know what, Georgia makes a little bit more sense now.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And Joe, he had family that went to Georgia too?
No,
Okay.
His family actually went to Duke.
Oh,
weirdly enough.
Okay.
But for whatever reason, like, he had this love of Georgia, and he had an offer from Duke, and then Georgia was his next offer. He got his offer from Georgia, committed the next day he got his offer, and then conversely started recruiting me to come down to Georgia. And it probably took me 2 months or so just to be like, okay, good for you, but I'm still going to try to figure this thing out. And it just made sense.
So you and Joe go together.
We go together.
And but what was that? What was going from high school to college football? What was that jump like? What was that transition like?
It's different just because in your town, Charlotte's not a small city, but by no means is it, the football capital of the world. So you get a chance to see other great athletes. You get a chance to see, what type of work you have to do to be able to play at that level. Balancing schedules where you're playing in front of 90,000 versus 5,000, and then going to class and having other responsibilities, and then also playing football, and trying to get all these things done while still just trying to understand that you're a freshman and you're in a new place and you're adapting to this new environment. So exciting, stressful, fun, a little bit of everything.
All the things.
All things.
What is your fondest memory from being a Bulldog?
It's the people, weirdly enough. Just those relationships that were established. On a football, there's different games that, you could pick out, whether it's beating Florida for the first time, or the blackout game, or going to Sugar Bowl down in New Orleans, which was a fun trip, or even just the first game against Boise. LSU, like, there's so many football memories, but the things that people, I guess, don't see are those locker room moments with people that become lifelong friends that, now I still talk to. I talk to a ton of my teammates every day. So
It's amazing. Those relationships.
Yeah.
People are most important.
For sure.
Can you take me back to one of those moments that maybe didn't make any highlight reel on ESPN or
that I can say?
Sure. The PG one.
I mean, what's weird is, like, when you come in as a freshman and you're meeting people, and then all of a sudden now you're people are having kids, and you're uncle to their kids, or you're godfather to their kids, or you're in a wedding, or your teammates spending the night, or you are just like those stories, that there's so many of those that occur, or when you take trips together, and you have your moments where you're enjoying the trip and all the things that comes with that. So it would be so hard to like drill down in on one moment because I'd get scatterbrained because I'd start a track and then you'd remember that one person was there and you'd be like, oh damn, here, you know, like, here's another story over here, and then you'd remember this person. So it would be impossible
to pick one. One thing I think about a lot is the importance of our decisions, how every single little thing that we do matters. There's meaning in it all. Mm-hmm. And so choosing between Texas and Georgia, that's a big life decision, right? And it has these ripple effects of these people that you're now in weddings for, mm-hmm. and that you're adopted uncles for, and that you have godchildren. And do you ever think about what could have been if you made a different decision? Is that something that ever enters your brain, or are you wired differently?
Yes and no. Texas won the national championship in 2005. Mm-hmm. Whether that occurs if I will go there or not, who knows? But if you are putting yourself in win-win situations, the outcome is going to be favorable. Mm-hmm. Now, had I gone, let's say had I gone to Georgia and, you know, I get a DUI the first day, or I, you know, get arrested, or, you know, there's some other stuff occurs.
Which is not all that uncommon.
In Athens. Then that decision to go to Georgia might have been a bad decision. Mm-hmm. I could have maybe said, you know, well, if I would have gone to this particular school, maybe, you know, XYZ would have happened to not have that situation occur, whether by my own fault or somebody cleaning it up. So win-win decisions for me are what I try to put myself in versus, you know, I have friends that went to Texas, friends that love Texas. I've visited Texas before. It's a great school, you know, great tradition, great program. Had I gone there, do I think I would have had a good time and made the most of it? I think so. Mm-hmm. But in going to Georgia, the mindset was, okay, you're here in a great situation, make the most of it.
I like that. Let's graduate. So you're a dog.
I'm a dog.
You're going in the draft.
Yeah.
What's going through your mind?
You don't really know. And you, typically what happens is that after the last game, which is, you know, for us, January 1, let's say.
Sure.
You don't come back for that spring semester.
You're done.
You like literally after the bowl game, my stuff was packed. I was out of the house that I lived in Athens, and I was gone.
And
Training.
Wow.
Like literally the next day you're in whatever site that you're supposed to be at. And so in that, it goes literally from amateur to, okay, now we got real work to do.
Another transition.
And you go straight into training, go straight into the combine, straight into your private workout, straight into your pro day.
Did you feel prepared for that?
Your body of work is what it is
mm-hmm.
at that point. So you don't see a guy go from undrafted to first round. Like mm-hmm. that's very rare, or a guy go from, you know, a top 10 pick to undrafted unless there's some like major issue, whether it's a health issue or, you know, an arrest or like something that gets uncovered. It's very hard to move. You're slotted in a particular range, so you have an idea mm-hmm. as to where you could hover around. Okay. But you don't know what city, you don't know when, you don't know whatever. So you're just thinking about, okay, it'd be cool to play here, it'd be cool to play here. It'd just be cool to play in general, just because mm-hmm. this is something that 0.0000001% of the population gets a chance to do. And you approach it as a workout, and then it's almost like a band of brothers. Everybody's working towards the same thing. People from, you know, I had a guy from Alabama, I had a guy from Florida, I had a dog with me, and, you know, we're supposed to be rivals, but we're all working to this same thing, so you become friends, and those guys are now, you know, friends for life as well. I think whenever you share a very unique thing with the population of people, that bond, you know, lasts for a lifetime.
Mm. Can you talk a little bit more about shared hardship, going through something together? What do you think that does to people's brains? Why does that bring people together?
Because you can relate. Like, you can tie it back and you can see a person in that environment. You can see what stresses them. You can see how they react to it. You can see how they were there for you. You can see how you were there for them. You like see the true essence of who a person is versus just fly by night. You know, you're kind of maybe working on the same task. You're thinking about doing something else. You don't really get a chance to get those intimate moments. But if you're in the trenches with somebody, you know, whether it's a positive outcome or negative outcome, like that's something that you can't replicate, you can't recreate, you can't bring somebody else into the fold and explain to them what happened on this particular day, in this particular game, in this particular hardship. You just get it. And for that reason, I think that, you know, that's why those relationships stay forever, you know. And even weirdly enough, like even as I understand, like let's say a guy that's at Georgia right now, we may not have played together, but we have a bond because we were at the same place doing the same thing. Or a person that's played in the SEC, or a person that's played in the NFL, or a person that's played professional sports. Like you kind of understand that in order for you to get there, we had to have done the same thing.
Yeah.
And it kind of just levels, you know, what you may view. It's like, okay, we're the same. We're more the same than we're not.
Common ground. Mutual understanding.
Mm-hmm.
It's really cool. So you go through the whole like prep, combine, you're talking to some teams, draft day comes. And it was a favorable outcome for you.
Yeah, so.
Well, before you knew where you were going to go and all of that, take me a little bit through that day. What kind of emotions are you feeling? What is that day like?
What's crazy is that one of my best friends, a guy named Hakeem Nicks, he actually got drafted that same day too. We from same high school, both played receiver. And we're talking, and you have no idea like where you're gonna go. We're both in Charlotte. He's at home. I'm at the house, and we're trying to figure out okay what's going on. And you're supposed to keep your phone clear because you know you're waiting on the call.
There's an important call coming,
and people are calling you, and you're like, "Dog, like get off of my phone because I have to get this call over here." And so you're texting back and forth, and finally you get this call. And I remember like just thinking, "Hello." You know, like, hey, is this Mohamed? You know, what do you think about being drafted by the Browns? And you know, like, of course, you know, like, call him. You see your name go across the ticker, and you're just like, this is crazy. Because you watch it, like, everybody watches the draft. Everybody understands that moment. And then it finally comes, and you're just like, what?
Did you ever visualize that as a kid? Was that like a dream to see your name tick across that?
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. I'm big in being able to see what you're trying to do. Like for me, like whatever that North Star is, like whatever you're aiming for, you have to see it, you have to visualize it, you have to understand it, you have to understand what goes into it, and then you almost reverse engineer it backwards and say, okay, I have to do this to get there, I have to do this to get there, I have to do this to get there. So from the time of, you know, playing outside and saying, hey, you know, I mossed you, or going into particular games on Friday nights and imagining that it was, you know, the Panther Stadium, or, you know, you see that first crop of guys get drafted your freshman year, and you're like, okay, I know what they did, so now I have to do this. So you're prepared for it to happen, but then when it finally happens, you're like, wow, you know, this is real. But then you shift gears again because there's something else that you now have to do. You have to recalibrate and say, okay, I'm here now, you know, the wow factor's over. There's other people that, you know, are here and they take their job very seriously. They don't want me coming in and taking their job, so I don't want them coming to take my job. So there's a lot of things that I have to do now.
Now that's an interesting dynamic. So you're on the Browns. You're competitive with everyone in your region. You're competing every week, but you're also competing against other Browns for a spot.
Weirdly enough, pro sports is not like college where you're on scholarship. Like it's a job where employees come, employees go, and it's high pressure, it's high stakes. There's a lot that's involved, and the difference is, you know, sometimes you may have skill that is the issue. You may have injuries that's the issue. You may have cap that's the issue. So you're constantly just competing to make sure you can put your best foot forth whenever you have the opportunity with other guys, because you may start with, I think they trimmed the roster down to 53, but you may start, I don't know, let's just say 90 or 85 just for, you know, round numbers. And those guys go. You see those guys go. You see them go. You see them go. And you're just like, God, you know, that's a guy with a family. That's a guy with a wife. That's a guy with kids. That's a guy with bills. That's a guy with, you know, private school tuition, mortgage.
And they're all people that you've gone through that shared hardship with.
They're all people.
They've gone through what you've gone through.
Yeah.
There's that empathy.
You know, there's that empathy. You become friends with them. You become, you know, like brother. You know, some people are best friends. You know, and you may see a guy go. Sometimes it's at a position that you play. You know, and you're just like, ooh, it's crazy.
And so let's say someone's in that 90, they don't make that 53. And I'm sure you have had friends that haven't made that cut. What do they do after? What's the life cycle of a former athlete today? Like what do they do?
It's weird because the athlete is. It's like if someone else switches career. You know, it like people look at athletes as if they're like this thing, like they're people too. So some go on and, you know, they get in media, some work traditional jobs, some go on and be entrepreneurs, some have enough money to where they just don't want to do anything and they retire. Some people get in philanthropy. It's different. The transition is probably a little bit different than most people because you were specialized at such a high level that most people don't reach, that it's hard to figure out what is the next thing I want to get to a high level at, because it's about what am I competing for, you know?
And at such a young age,
such a young age.
These kids grow up, specialize, get scholarship money, get millions of dollars signing with a team, and then it goes away. And you have this hyper specialty. You're one of the best in the world at this thing, and then you have to go find something else and climb another pyramid.
I guess like the difference, it was weird just because you almost aging like dog years in sports.
Okay.
You're 25, but you've been in the league for 3, 4, 5 years. You know, more in other sports.
Might as well be decades.
You know, and you grow up and you mature different. And then you get out into like the normal world and you hear somebody that's, you know, late 30s or 40s, and you hear an older person call them young. And you're just like, wait a minute, this like doesn't really make any sense.
Yeah.
Like once you hit 30 as an athlete, you're considered old. But once you hit like 40, you're hitting your sweet spot in, you know, the working world or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's weird, and then as you get into the working world and you're 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 years detached from, you know, other people that have come out or other people that have been doing things, so that learning curve to reshift and refocus and just figure out what you want to do is a lot different. And it takes time. You know? Different game.
So you're at the Browns. Let's talk about your NFL career. How was that experience for you?
So in the fact that you're there is phenomenal. I wish we would have had more success. There's a lot of things that I learned later on in my career that I wish I would have learned early.
What kinds of things?
Just how to be a pro. When you come from college, you're multitasking. You're going to class, you are going to study hall, you're going to team activities, you're doing things on campus. There's a lot of other stuff that you're playing. When you're a pro, that is your only job. There's nothing else. Yeah. And the longer you're in it, you learn how to take care of your body. You learn how to properly prepare. You learn how to watch film. You learn how to practice. You learn how to do a lot of things. For us, we were a younger team, so we didn't necessarily learn a lot of those different things. And then as you start to meet other guys that are playing at a high level, you're like, oh, that's how I'm supposed to do this. Oh, that's how I'm supposed to do that. I think the ability to learn that early is what separates, let's say, the really good teams from the teams that have a lot of turnover and struggle, because they don't. Guys are working hard, guys are very talented, but there's a way to do certain things. And the faster you learn that way to do certain things, the greater your chance for success is.
Totally makes sense. Are there any mentors from your time in the league that stick out in your mind?
I would say vet players that you start to meet. Later, I got a chance to start working out with Hines, who's Hall of Fame caliber. I had a chance to spend a summer with, or part of a summer with Larry Fitzgerald, and that was later on. And you start to see, oh wow, this is how you do this is why this guy's so special. Mm-hmm. And when you track it back, Hines, he goes to the Steelers, and they've been historically good for forever, just a very well run organization. Sure. You have Larry's track when he's watching, in Minnesota, and he's watching Moss, and he's watching Chris Carter, and he picks up those skills and those traits. And those things are the things that you just learn. You learn, okay, instead of running, 10 gassers and thinking that's a workout, maybe you run 25 gassers. Or, instead of doing this particular drill, you do this. Mm-hmm. And the more you can learn that, I think the more success that you have. Mm-hmm. So in being able to learn that, one of the things I struggled with was injuries. Started getting concussions, and that changes the way that you view the game or you play the game. And the more that you get and the longer that it takes to recover, it affects your ability to say, hey, how much longer can I do this? Because right around that time is when concussions start to become a big deal, and you start to understand the long-term effects of it, and that plays into a part of it. So in being able to stay healthy and in being able to just understand how to be a pro are the two things that I wish I would have learned coming into the league.
Makes a lot of sense. You bring up when you're playing maybe in the backyard, you're mossing people. Mm-hmm. Did you have heroes growing up? People that you looked up to in the league that you wanted to be like? Were there position-specific heroes that you looked up to?
It starts to get position-specific as you start to dial into a particular position. Sure. Because you're constantly trying to learn, whether you know it or not, mm-hmm. from whoever the best is. You have a model of, okay, this guy kind of functions like me, he looks like me, or reverse. There's certain things that I could potentially have the ability to do that this guy does because we are the same size, we potentially have the same skill set, may have to develop it, but I can get there.
Who were those people for you? Who was one?
You look at a guy like I had a lot of respect for, let's say, Greg Jennings mm-hmm. as a player, or even Donald Driver as a player, mm-hmm. or Chad Johnson as a player, or it wouldn't make sense to say, hey, while Calvin Johnson is phenomenal, I'm not 6'5", right. nor am I 230. So being able to see him, I think we played them twice. Yeah. You see that, okay, this guy is very special, mm-hmm. and you have an appreciation for his skill set. But being able to say, someone can't just go out and be Calvin Johnson or, Julio Jones. They don't create those type of humans. Right. But you can see certain guys that have really worked and really defined the type of player that they're going to be and how they go about their day, and you try to mimic that or learn how to be similar to them.
So when you were coming up, and you have these heroes, did you end up meeting any of those heroes later in life?
It's the weirdest thing, because all the people that I just referenced, I've met all of them or know all of them. Or
what's that like?
It's weird. Our first real game, not preseason game, but the first real game. Brett Favre's the quarterback. We're playing the Vikings. Brett Favre's the quarterback. Adrian Peterson is the running back. And you're sitting there and you're thinking, God, that's Brett Favre. We're literally on the same field. This Adrian Peterson, both of these guys are Hall of Fame type people. And you have to make the switch, because it's not like college where the legends are gone, But if you have a guy that's played 10, 15 years in the league, or that's come out and, broken records, and you understand, what they've done, you're just like, God, that's crazy. But it switches very fast to where you go from the awe factor to, all right, we're competing now. It'd be cool to beat this person or get a pick or score a touchdown or mm-hmm. do whatever. Kind of have some bragging rights.
Yeah, and you're on the same field as them.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So you just it goes from fan to, okay, I'm supposed to be here. I have a job to do, and I want to win. The competitive spirit comes out.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
So you get to the highest level of your sport, mm-hmm. and it's not without adversity and hardship. Mm-hmm. There's a lot that you have to sacrifice and work through and to get to that level.
Mm-hmm.
Along that journey, can you tell me about a time that you got knocked down and you got back up? Something that challenged you and made you stronger?
Well, my first concussion.
Okay.
You know, the first concussion.
How did that happen?
Weirdly, coming across the middle against the Steelers, and you get laid out.
Mm-hmm.
And that weekend actually was like the weekend where mine was probably like the flagship concussion.
Okay.
And that weekend was when they started to change some of the rules around just helmet-to-helmet contact and, how we view concussions and everything. But you have to, after you heal, you have to get back out there, and it's just part of the game. I think the interesting thing about sports is that you're constantly under pressure and adversity. And you're constantly learning how to function under pressure, under adversity, under, not feeling well, under injury, over all these things. So it builds up this resiliency that you understand that you have to keep going. There's you're not allowed to quit. You're not allowed to fold. You're not allowed to bow out. And that's a lifelong skill or a lifelong trait that you hope that you developed. So there's not many things now that, if you take a big hit that you figure that you can't recover from.
Yeah.
For me, yeah.
You have that mindset. You've drilled that into yourself.
I think sports is. I'd encourage everyone to play some type of sport because you don't win every game. You don't always feel good. Mm-hmm. The elements aren't always good. I played in Cleveland. We had my rookie year. I think we had 4 games where it was in the negatives. So the game's going to go on.
And come from the South, Charlotte and Athens. You aren't feeling that kind of cold.
I didn't own a jacket when I went up there. I had to go get a North Face. But yeah, you just understand that the game is going to go on, life is going to go on, and it's all about overcoming and what's the next thing that I'm striving for.
So in that spirit, no longer in the league.
Yeah.
Why don't you tell me where you are now?
So combination of things. So this happened.
And what's this?
This is a prosthetic hand that was a result of an ATV accident, 4-wheeling accident, where I had 4 fingers amputated. And same mindset to where you're like, okay, this hit a little harder than anything in the league.
Different kind of hit. And when did this happen?
April 2017.
Okay, so about a year and a half
ago. So it's still fairly new, but it's one of those things that you're like, okay, I'm going to lick my wounds for a little bit, and I have to get up. I have to figure this thing out. It's not going to feel good. It's not going to feel comfortable. It doesn't feel comfortable.
So before we move on, let's go back to that moment. Let's go back to April. It's the off season.
So I was done playing at this point.
Okay, done playing.
So done playing. For a number of years.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you're having fun. You're with friends.
You don't really think that something like this could happen.
Yeah.
Like you really think like, okay, we'll run out of gas. A tire will go flat. Someone will get lost and we'll have to go find them. Whatever, things like that are the things that you think about. You don't really think, oh, I'm going to be in the hospital, I'm going to have surgery, I'm going to break something, I'm going to whatever. You're thinking, okay, I'm a high functioning athlete, that this thing is just going to be a hobby that we'll get dirty, we'll come home, it'll be a lot of fun. And then even when it happens, the crash happens, the shock of, gosh, this is, now I got to go to the hospital, probably throw a cast on it. All right, we'll be back out here, whenever. And you're sitting there and the doctor comes in with this blank look on his face and says, hey, this is what's going to happen. Amputation comes out, and you're just like, whoa, let's kind of backtrack. It kind of lost me there. You threw a word out that I think I understand, but it doesn't really make sense for this context.
Yeah.
And then, you play the story forward, and an amputation occurs, and you're just like, wow, how do you become an amputee?
So you hear that word, And you probably have some preconceived notions of what that word means.
Not really.
No.
Because prior to, I didn't know an amputee personally. And most of the time you think someone from the military, from, an active service, unfortunately they were in a situation where a body part, was missing. Or so you think more that to lose something like big, major has to occur. Not four-wheeling, not, having fun. Like that's not when it's supposed to occur. It's not supposed to be something just like crazy is going on around you for it to happen. And so I think it just never really, it took months for that to really register.
So you take a big hit, you come across the middle, and you didn't think four-wheeling would be as risky as coming across the middle against the Steelers, but you get hit.
You take a number of hits in life.
How do you get back up?
Well, you have to own it. Like you can't run from it.
Yeah.
For me, in that time of shock and like not owning it, it just prolonged and pushed it out. And you have to own it, and you have to break, and you have to understand that this is going to be challenging, and that it is what it is, and it's going to be confusing, and it's going to be painful, and it's going to hurt, and you're going to cry, and you're going to be confused, and there's all these emotions that you have to get out. And after that, that's when you can start to build back up. Without going through that, you just build on shaky ground, and you crumble or you relapse or you do whatever. But after you actually break and then build back up, and then you have to identify whatever that North Star is again. Like if you're just wandering aimlessly through life, you just wander. But if you have something that's, okay, I'm focused on doing boom, 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 boom. This isn't the way I would have planned it, but boom, boom, boom still has to occur.
Yeah.
And I have to get out of my own way to accomplish these things that I've set out. And you write them down, you tell people about them. You're very specific in what you're trying to accomplish. Because if not, you just lose track of time.
That's solid gold, man. That's awesome. So those boom, 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 boom. What are your booms right now? What is that new vision? What is...
A combination of things. Okay. One of the things that I noticed, one is very challenging to get these devices.
Okay.
They're not cheap. Insurance can be very tricky, and that's even for a guy that has gone through the NFL and has what I would consider really good insurance. It's still very challenging. And my accident happened when I was 30. So in thinking about a kid who has to go through the same thing, and they haven't lived life, and they don't have some of the life experiences, and it's not of any fault of their own that they have to go through. So the first boom is creating a foundation that raises money to pay for kids' prosthetic devices. Next year we're having a tennis tournament. I'm actually in the process of learning how to play tennis now, so I don't get knocked out of that tournament.
Nice. Okay.
So either I'm going to get really good, or my partner is going to be like Roger Federer or something.
Pulling some weight.
He'll pull the weight. Or John Isner, not to put him on the spot.
I'm sure you got game. You got more time to prepare too.
Yeah. I have probably about 6 months to prepare.
Okay.
6-7 months. So that's the first boom. In the concept of just like what athletes. Go ahead.
And what is the name of that foundation? What is this project?
So the
you're working on?
We won't really get into it. It's literally the biggest thing. These things once you get them, you have so much more confidence. You have so much more freedom.
Can you tell me a little bit about it? How does it work?
So my batteries are actually dead. I should have charged it. But there's sensors in here.
Okay.
And with these sensors, you can maneuver your hand, hold cups, and different things like that. And that helps in the sense of being able to, let's say if I shake your hand, and I had this glass in my hand, and I wanted to shake your hand, to be able to transfer naturally is what most people can do. But it's very awkward when you're...
It's like knowing how much pressure to apply, how much force to grip with.
No, it's... So that... After a while, you can figure that part out.
Okay.
But just the ability to not make it awkward every time you have to do two-handed things.
Gotcha.
I'm trying to open a door. I have something in my hand. I need to transfer. Like that transfer between two hands, people take for granted. It's so natural.
Something most people don't even think about.
Don't think about it. Mm-hmm. Or walking. You know, I have friends that are people that I've met now who are amputees below the leg, and they'll get up and forget to put their leg on and fall. So there's certain things that you're challenged with, and without these devices, especially for a kid and you're growing and you're in your developmental years, there's really no way for them to feel as confident as they potentially could. So hopefully bringing some of the confidence that I got, back when I got this device is a major boom. A major one. And
that lesson, what you just went through about how you get back up. You gotta acknowledge it. You gotta accept it. You gotta build on it.
You have to. You have to. And the other reason, getting this was a big part of moving forward. So in not having that thing, and not everyone wears a prosthetic device. Some people function better without them. Some people are more comfortable. Mm-hmm. But for me in particular, I felt a lot more confident.
Now you have a tool.
Now I have a tool.
One step closer to Terminator.
I'll be back. So that is a major boom, and because I'm an athlete, there will be real cool things that we do around sports. The first will be a tennis tournament. We'll probably have some type of dodgeball tournament, cool things to be able to raise money where people are engaged. We can tell a story. We can have different kids who can participate in these different events and just continue that whole community. It's back to what we were talking about, and going through something together. There's just this understanding. There's a guy, Garrett, right now. I actually met him this summer. He's a below the leg, and he's going to be a snowboarder. He's actually in Dubai right now competing, and there's just rooting him on to go.
Badass, man.
I understand, even though I'm not a below the leg, I understand what it's like to lose something and then have a new thing that you're aiming for, and the challenges that he has that may have been easier with two legs than a device that you're hoping that your device functions the way that you want it to.
Right.
So, and hopefully being able to help more kids, more individuals, young adults do those things is a major boom. Aside from that, this transition from professional sports, all athletes go through it, and the other boom is just creating things that will help athletes transition better out of sports to different careers, or even while they're in sports, take advantage of some of the things that they can do to prepare for the transition or get things in motion for the transition from a business standpoint.
What are some examples of those things? What could some athletes be doing now, or while they're still in college or still in the league, but maybe towards the end of their time there? What could they be preparing for?
It's understanding what they're interested in, and what they've learned through being an athlete that may potentially help them. So whether it's using their resources differently to potentially invest in something, whether it is using their brain differently to continue to create value for themselves, whether it is structuring deals a certain way, so that there's certain things that are unique to athletes that may not be unique to other people. Me going to the University of Georgia and playing football there's a lot of people that I've met because of that, whereas maybe some of my classmates may not have had that same experience.
Right.
So while they may have had X amount of years doing something, I have this over here that may help us get to the same end goal. And in understanding those things will be another boom. And then in being able just to share, some of the things that I've learned on this journey, whether it be through sports or through becoming an amputee and overcoming certain things, being able to speak to those things. And that's something that I didn't expect. It was one of those things that you start getting emails like, hey, can you come keynote this event? Or, hey, can you come speak to my company for XYZ reasons? And those will be the three things that will be my North Stars. And I won't compromise those things for other things. Back to being extremely focused as to what I'm trying to accomplish. Other things will probably only get done in terms of what I'm focused on once I feel secure in these areas. It's just, I would equate it to saying, okay, I want to be a professional athlete.
Yeah.
Whether there's basketball, there's football, there's track, there's hockey, there's volleyball, there's gymnastics, and in understanding what you need to prepare for. If I want to just be a great athlete and I wouldn't specialize in anything, the chances of making it to one would be very slim. So taking that same approach and saying, these are the things that I want to focus on, and maybe I can, be a functional something else, but I won't do that and compromise these other things.
The beautiful thing that I see about what you're choosing to focus on is all of those three have roots in giving back to what you've already said means the most to you. When you're talking about memories that you had in college, it wasn't the blackout or it wasn't the touchdown catch. It wasn't those highlight moments that I think people would probably expect. It was the people that you went through that shared hardship with. And now you're a part of these populations of people, these people that are amputees and looking for resources and looking for not just physical tools that can help them, but the mental tools, how to think through getting back up. And then you take that same mindset to athletes and former athletes that you've been there, you've gone through the league, you've transitioned out of the league. There's people still going through that process that need help, and you can pass the boon. You can give that you can pass on that torch to them. This is how you do it, or this is what you need to think about. And then speaking is the most direct way. Yeah. What you're doing right now. You're sharing your story. You're saying this is what I went through, and I might not be the same exact kind of person as you, but maybe you can draw some lessons, some little nuggets out, and be able to enrich your life through that. I really respect what you're doing.
Yeah. So I did a lot of reading during the recovery.
Okay.
Just human stories, biographies, autobiographies. Watched a lot of interviews. And one of the people I came across, I can't take credit for this, Tristan Walker. He's CEO of Walker Companies. And what his company makes is, like different shaving things for people of color, different hair products. And he's a tech guy. He was on Foursquare. He's done like really interesting things in tech. And so when it came time for him to come out with his own platform, people were expecting him to create the Uber for whatever, to do this, to do that, all these techie things that you would traditional think needs a lot of code, a lot of programming. And he said, I found out that I need to do what I'm uniquely qualified to do. He's an African American. He knew certain challenges that he had with ingrown hairs, with shaving, with getting his haircut, different challenges that maybe people had with hair products, and he solved that. And it's a phenomenal product. It's just great all around. And he understands it in and out because he's uniquely qualified to do that. And I think most people, they're looking for things that either bring status or bring money or bring whatever the case may be. And if that's your desire to have those things, if you're doing what you're uniquely qualified to do, they'll eventually come. But the purposefulness and the happiness and the joy of it doesn't feel like work. If I'm speaking to something that I believe in, it doesn't feel like work in being able to raise money for something that I care about. It doesn't feel like work to help people that have the same struggle as myself. Like those are things that I have a lot of joy doing. Now, it's hard, like playing football at a high level is very hard. Anything that you're going to do that's worth doing is hard. You don't replace the work. But the joy of getting the work done at a high level is something that you can't replace, even if you were in some back room, making gobs of money, but you'd be miserable every day.
Hell yeah, man. Heart of a brawler right there. That's what it's all about.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that. So in this recovery period, you're consuming a lot of content. You find this guy Tristan. Is there any other resources that you came across that were really game-changing? Anything else that sticks out in your mind that you would recommend to someone that maybe is in their own kind of recovery phase or looking for something to help rewire their brain or set them off on the right track?
Find hobbies that you enjoy. So for me, tennis was one of those things that I started just to hit around because, shooting a basketball was a little bit different. So finding music and then going for it. One of the things in that discovery, I came across a professor, Anita Elbersay, who's a Harvard professor, and she was teaching this class to athletes or a lot of athletes were in this particular class, and I was like, that's very interesting. Harvard, that's up here, and I reached out to her, and she was like, hey, I'm very, you're an amputee. What's really going on here? My story wasn't out yet, and through just reaching out and just saying, hey, I don't know if she'll respond. I don't know what. That led me to going to do that program and now continuing my education at Harvard. So being able to just go, whatever that thing is, saying I'm going to go for it because I believe in it. And if it's for me, it's going to happen. And sometimes you have to knock a couple more walls down to get it done, and just going for it, because there's no rule that this particular person is supposed to do what they want and that you're not supposed to have any of their fun. Like, if you just go for it, it's all going to make sense. It's all going to come together in due time, whether that's a week, a month, a year, 5 years. If you stay on the track that you're uniquely qualified to be in, you're going to have whatever you want.
Inspiring stuff.
Yeah.
And in Brawl for a Cause, we talk about not just talking the talk, but walking the walk and fighting the fight.
Mm-hmm.
You're definitely someone that fights the fight. You inspire me. I think you're going to inspire a lot of people as you go into this next chapter of your life and you speak and you do this philanthropic work and you help people that have gone through the same kind of shared hardship that you have. So I wish you all the best.
I appreciate it, man. Good luck to you too.
Thanks. Where can people find you? How can people stay connected to you, follow your journey, come see you speak? What kind of outlets do you have out there? You mentioned a website, social media.
So try to keep everything simple. My website is my name, www.mohamedmassaquoi.com. My social media handles are Iron Massaquoi. Iron Man is one of my favorite, Marvel characters. So, and being able to take a little bit of his moniker and add it to myself with this new device.
Love it.
Yeah, so Iron Massaquoi on all the handles and MohamedMassaquoi.com.
Awesome.
For sure.
Mohamed, thank you so much for being here, man.
Stuff,
Thanks for taking the time.
Likewise.
Thanks for sharing your story.
Yeah, keep doing what you're doing, man. Keep brawling.
Yeah.